All right. Welcome, Hammer. I know it's a very busy week coming up. You've got Warriors Way next week.
Yeah.
You've got that little gym of yours to run. Plenty on the plate. How's it all looking for next Saturday?
Yeah, look, Warriors Weight's 24, so it's been a big one. I think that when we spoke about this, I think that the challenge was being UFC weekend.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people are like, move your show, don't do it, and I'm like, well, this is the time for us to really test side, see how much people are really committed to Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Because I thought, you know what, I'm not going to move the show. I'm going to stack the card. I'm flying in 5 people from New Zealand, flying in 3 from Adelaide, flying in 2 from the Gold Coast, and that's expensive.
Yeah.
Flying in, Trevor, one of the officials, their teams. There's meal money involved, accommodation. So it's gone from I'll just do a small show in case the UFC rolls me to you know what, I'm going to go balls out with it, and we'll see really what the support is in Melbourne for Muay Thai, because everyone's always, you should do this, should have girls on the show, you should, do your shows, you should do this, bring people. So, and we do it, but how appreciated is it that we do it? Then there's talk about, fighters' pays and this and that, and it's like, I was talking to someone about it the other day, and I said, you know what, I don't do this for return on investment, because it's the shittest to return on investment I could ever do.
Both financially and time-wise.
Yeah,
insane.
So we share the same passion, and really we're the only people doing, that have been around doing Muay Thai in Melbourne for a while now. Obviously with hardcore as well now popping up, but there's not a lot of fat in it at the end of the day, and you got to run it lean and mean. And so this is going to be a test, and it's going to be my answer to a lot of people's questions of, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, I am doing it now, and we'll see how it rolls. I think it'll go okay, because I think the concept of Australia versus New Zealand, and the reason I've done that is because the UFC there's a heap of Kiwis coming for that. So I haven't been silly about it, but at the same time, there's still going to be people at the last minute going to do the old, I've got the UFC tomorrow. I've had a couple already do that, and I'm like, all right. So we'll see what happens when the door opens.
I don't know if you've ever seen a movie, I think it's called Old School with Will Ferrell. And there's a scene where he gets drunk and he goes, we're all going to go running and streaking. And he's running down the road screaming, we're all streaking, we're all doing it. And his wife pulls up and he's running on his own. That's what I feel like the promoting is like, we should do this, do the big show. It's like, cool, we're doing it. It's like, where is everyone?
It's you and me running naked down the street, and that's not pleasant. That's not a good look at all.
But especially with that weekend, I can imagine so many people flying, and the flights and accommodation and stuff's going to be hectic.
Yeah. It's and then there's the medicals. These days we've got to put. The board's got a lot of boxes to tick to get fighters over the line to fight, regulations and medicals, and all of that comes at a price. So it is. There's a lot of stuff that behind the scenes that you and I and other promoters are aware of. That I think the general public maybe aren't, and just think, people just roll up and fight and everyone walks away with wads of cash. As I said, to me, return on investment it's a poor investment. Yeah. And I likened it to, when I was talking about it the other day, I likened it to, some people build, custom cars or race cars or, speedboats or, have hobbies that are expensive, and this is basically a very expensive hobby for us,
it's a very expensive hobby.
So, but mate, you get a little bit if the sponsors get behind you, and that's the key. We were speaking earlier about why, the difference between boxing and Muay Thai or kickboxing as to the purses and the pays and obviously boxing sponsors, you only have to go to the pavilion and see any boxing show, and they're selling tables like there's no tomorrow. Yeah. A lot of corporate sponsorship. And then on top of it, of course, these days boxing, when they get on TV, they do get paid, or they get better sponsorships for getting on TV. Whereas I actually, to put Warriors Way on cost me money. So I just want to get it on Fox Sports, because I've had that 20 years plus relationship since the channel started, and it's a bit of a thing that I just do now out of loyalty to them, and something that I want to keep doing. Yeah. But will I keep doing it? I'll reassess it on a year by year basis, because I know Rebellion's very successful with the streaming. It reaches a broad audience. So I don't do the streaming because I want people to come to the show, number one. And that was one thing when I did do the streaming. It probably cost me, up to 150 people, because people bought the stream for $20 or whatever it is, and you know, 8 of them sat at home watching it, and these are people that live, you know, a suburb from where the show is.
Exactly.
It's like, come on, you know, it comes back to stop talking shit to me and come and show the support, you know. So
it's like one of those. It's good in theory things where, and like we both had good success with it. But it's one of those things where, in theory, when people see it, it's like, oh, I mean, even with the streaming and YouTube and stuff, like we do quite a lot of things, and we've got 5,000 followers on YouTube.
Yeah.
If Tom, instead of filming Rebellion, started writing really shitty songs and uploaded it to YouTube, we'd probably have a bigger following.
You should get your kids playing with dolls and that. You get like millions.
Yeah, there's a kid. There's Ryan's Toy Reviews. That kid makes millions and he's got his own toy range.
Come on, get your kids in the game. Get them in the game.
He's learning Muay Thai at the moment. He's going to go down the wrong path. With the card coming up, obviously the big headline one is Alexi and Sam.
Yeah, and I really like Sam Hill. You know, he's I've had him on the show a few times. You know, he rolled up. You know, the last time obviously it was meant to fight Abbas, and Abbas unfortunately got sick on the day. So, you know, I still give Sam his purse. You know, he didn't fight. I've gone, mate, you're here. You know, we've done it all, and literally, you know, we were trying to get him on the show at midday, the day of the fight. Yeah. And I thought it was, well, it's not fair not to, you know, for him not to get an earn out of it. So I still paid him, even though he didn't fight. And you know, Abbas obviously very apologetic, and it wasn't his fault. So I always said to Sam, mate, I'm sorry, it was out of my hands, but I will bring you back, and this is his comeback for that. But he comes, you know, and same with his missus, baby Nance, and, you know, she's going to be a revelation on the show, I believe.
Yeah.
And, you know, the guys from City Kickboxing and Smack Gym in New Zealand have always been very supportive of me.
Yeah, you've had a good, very long relationship with those guys.
Yeah, even ETK with Jason Suddy, you know, the champion people, the Kiwis. So I've got a bit of a soft spot for the New Zealand fighters because they're always so willing and they want to come. They fight well, and yeah, you know, I'd just like to have them on the show when possible. It's probably, if I had 2 locals, it would be obviously much more better financial situation. But like you, I'm even doing a Queensland versus a Kiwi on this one.
So
there we go.
Pappas and Dominic Reed, and I'm like.
So, but it's, you know, I must say I sort of took a leaf out of your book on that one where it's like, you know what, it's a good fight. It's 2 guys that probably are going to sell me no tickets or bugger all. And I thought, but it's still going to be a good fight. So we'll do it, and hopefully the support is there and the people that are there will appreciate it.
Yeah,
so,
the couple of times I've seen Dominic fight is sharp as, really good fighter. Anthony, I haven't seen fight live. I've seen him on videos and all the raps. I think that's, especially at that sort of weight, that's one of those.
I'm excited for that one, And Dominic's fought on the card before, and he's gotten better. He was good then, but now he's even better. So Pappas and Reed is going to be a great fight, and I think, you know, it's if nothing else, it's going to be entertaining. And Joey Balon as well, you know, from ETK, he's on there fighting Jen. So
his last fight was against River on your show, and that was a hell of a fight.
So he's been on, and now he's moving to MMA. So he's got a bit of a deal for the one series, I think, to fight on that you know, up and coming one fighter series. So Joey's, and I had Joey down as sparring partner for River, so I flew him in. I've done this 2 or 3 times to help River's fights on Glory. So I brought Joey down because he's a left-handed fighter and fought very similar to the Japanese fighter we were scheduled to fight. Yeah,
that's been changed.
In Dusseldorf, and then, you know, last week they've changed it. Now we've gone from fighting a walk-forward, left-handed Japanese fighter who's you know, big puncher and a big low kicker to fighting a Spanish kid that's, you know, looks like he's a taekwondo, you know, competitor from the past. He does jumping double kicks. He's orthodox. He's totally the opposite. So thanks, Joey. That was a waste of time.
We can send Tom Gathick down. He's got pretty awesome taekwondo kicks. So if you need a sparring partner for River, he can have a week off.
That's it. Anyway, any taekwondo guys out there that want to have a crack, come on down to Hammers, and we need rounds.
Get Laos Tui down there. So Hammer, going back to the beginning, how'd you get into the martial arts and the fight game in the first place?
Okay, thanks. So when I was very young, I did a bit of judo, I think, like yourself, but then, you know, it was when I was pretty much a kid. then I suppose in my early 20s, late teens, I started Kyokushin with Eddie Emin, just around the corner here, actually, in Elwood.
Yep.
And Kyokushin, really, I didn't know anything else. I didn't want to know anything else. It's almost an obsessive martial art. But my hands got too busted up because you fight bare knuckle, and it was very taxing on the body.
Yeah.
Busted my right hand in the Vic Championships. Back then, I was out. I couldn't do any striking for probably a year because of the damage. And then I was working security, and someone walked up and said, he's a tournament flyer, and that's when the Bob Jones Corporation, or BJC, Zendo Kai, was quite big in Melbourne. So I went to this tournament, and I was at the Preston Town Hall, and I rolled up with my gi, and it was a Muay Thai tournament, and they've gone, oh, mate, you can't wear that. So they give me I think Craig Larson, the great Craig Larson, goes, what rank are you? He give me a singlet. He goes, you leave your pants on, but you got to fight with our singlet. And they put me in a heavyweight division.
Were you a heavyweight?
Yeah, I was probably high 90s back then, mid 90s, as I said. Doing security and all the rest of it. So I was focusing a bit on weights back then too. The heavyweight division, I think I got runner up and had my nose punched from one side of my face to the other, because Kyokushin, your guard's low and boxing wasn't a priority, obviously. So, but I had the kicks that sort of got me through. And then after the tournament, I'll never forget, Bob Jones come up to me and he goes, he introduced himself, and he goes, oh, mate, you do a bit of taekwondo or karate, or, I noticed you got good kicks. And I told him I did Kyokushin with Eddie, but I've stopped now. And he invited me to then go, and he goes, where I was sort of living and working, he goes, look, go and see Steve Nedelkos, his region of stables. So from Steve Nedelkos, I met up with Paul Danaludi, and then I trained with a man called Sean Steinford, who I went through and got my black level with, and that was running out of Doncaster, because I was running security out in the suburbs as well. And I had a whole heap of guys that were bouncing with me come along and try Muay Thai.
Bar, were you?
No, I was at High Society before that. So, it was a bit of a team thing for my security team as well. So we're like, we're going to go and we're going to do this Muay Thai stuff, and we used to punch each other up and then, go and work on the weekend. So that was my introduction. And then through that, I remember I fought in a fight. One of my first fights actually in Muay Thai was South Melbourne Town Hall, and they said the guys said, we're going to have a seminar with Dave Hedgecock, South Melbourne Town Hall, Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So we rolled up, started doing the seminar, and then they lined everyone up, and they've gone, you downstairs, you're going to fight. I'm like, excellent. I've had 3 hours sleep. I'm straight and working security, and they just said, yeah, all right, you can fight. So they matched us up, and I fought one of John Sheeter's guys. It was a bouncer at the Kilkenny back in the day. So they had the battle of the bouncers. So we punched the stuffing out of each other, and that was my first win. And really, it was like, got this awesome trophy. I remember, the trophy was like one of those K1 ones with the ribbons and all that. I'm like, man, I only see these in magazines. This is crazy. So after the tournament, after the event, I'm driving home to show my then girlfriend the trophy, and it got pulled up by the coppers, and it was speeding. And the copper's like, mate, you've done this. And I'm like, yeah, but I won a trophy. Have a look at my trophy. So I've gone to the car, and I'm showing the guy the trophy, and he's gone, obviously been punched too much in the head today, so he's gone, listen, just settle down, son, and keep your eye on the speed limit and get out of here. So, I had a fight. I got out of a speeding fine. It was a good day for me. So so that was, so going through that, then through the BJC, went through their system. Then I started training out at Bayswater at Boyd Hooper's gym.
Yep.
Had a few fights under Boyd. Fought a guy called, I think his name was Gary Clark. He was an Australian Kung Fu heavyweight champion. But that was back in the day when it was above waist kicks only as well, and boxing. So that was an interesting fight. And I think that fight was at leg kicks, because they started It was a Paul Major show actually. So it's like the start of leg kicks.
The Rock.
We were coming into the shows then. So that fight was at the Village Green, and I won that, and had a few other fights under board, and then I fought at the Reggio Calabria Club in the show there. I think it was one of the shows that Dana Goodson did a show there, and that was the one loss I had, and that was a split points. It was Sergio Il Cafillo, I think his name was, and he was one of Dana's boys. And
there was no social media to complain about it.
Man, I was like, I still remember how, because Joey Lanciano put a count on me because I kicked him in the body, and as I've kicked him, my leg's gone through the second rope, and my leg got tangled in the rope, and he saw my leg get tangled in the rope. Instead of stepping back, he jumped on me and started wailing on me, and I couldn't really do a lot because I was half in and out the ropes. So Peter Lewis was a doctor back then. He jumped up and waved like his hand to say my leg was caught, but I think the ref took it as I was hurt, which I wasn't, and give me a count. And I protested it, but too late, too little, too late. So split points, lost by a point, and that was the one loss I had. So I was absolutely spewing on that, but after that fight, as the decision was announced, I remember standing there looking down, and my left foot was blue, and I'm like, man, that's not meant to be like that. And I, as a result, ended up in hospital with compartment syndrome in my shin. So there's been a couple of fighters that have had that over the years, Talakouris and a few others. So that was a touch and go thing. Doc Lewis, he's been my doctor for that long. He went down to whatever hospital I was in at the time, and they treated it, and it was touch and go whether they'd have to cut your shin open to relieve the swelling on your shin. But it was all good. So from that time on, then I because Bryce was a trainer at Eastside, I started training under Bryce Birtwistle, and had a few fights with Bryce. And Bryce realised my boxing needed improvement, so put me in for boxing fights, which was very mixed results with the boxing, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. We just did it to keep busy.
Yep.
But I learnt a lot from it, and sparring down at Mick Canavan's gym in Ringwood with some good guys down there too. At the time, Dave Russell was training down there. Matt Tryhe, Tony Squillaci, Stewie Patterson. These guys were like guns in the boxing from the eastern suburbs. So you go down there and you'd get living shit punched out of you. But it was what it was. It helped me improve my boxing one way or the other. And then moved on and sort of, as I said, trained with Bryce for a while, then started teaching myself. And then I just trained myself for my last few fights and fought over in Thailand. Had a couple of fights over there as well. The fight at Chawang, the old Chawang Stadium, where I used to run the tours with Stefan Fox every year, the international kickboxer tours. We'd go over, train for 2 weeks, and then have a fight at the end of it. So the first one I fought in it myself, and I was meant to fight Hanarong back then. So Nong was a very impressive looking fella, but on the day of the fight, he didn't turn up to the fight because someone said he met a lovely tourist girl that took his attention away from the fight game for that evening. So they had another fighter who was from Bangkok, and it was a tough fight too. And I learnt a lot from that fight as well, because the fight started and I was, as I said, boxing was pretty handy, and I knocked him with a jab. So I sat him in the first round with a jab. I thought, I'm going to go all right here. This is just going to use my hands. But cleverly, he quickly realised that my boxing was a strength, and just proceeded to kick the shit out of my arms. Broke my left arm. And I never had a broken arm or leg or anything like that before, so it was just painful. I went back to the corner, and I said to Fox, I'm like, man, my hand's hurting. And he's like, it's just bruising, you fucking wussy, and just poured some water on me and pushed me back into the next round. So, and I couldn't lift my arm, so I was fighting pretty much with one arm. We got through the fight anyway, and at the end of that, ended up in hospital. So my hand swelled up that bad, they had to cut the glove off my hand. And I'm like, I told you there was something wrong with my hand.
And the water didn't fix it. The old Thai, pour water and massage, it'll fix it.
It was a close fight. I got a good result, so I was happy with it all. But, ended up in hospital, and this is a funny anecdote. I was sitting in the hospital in the waiting room at the Choweng Hospital, which is the nice one, and that's where they sent me there in the back of a ute. Got the X-ray done at this hospital, and there's a couple of Aussies there, and I got there. Well, they took me to hospital. The show was still going, and when I got there, there was like a few Aussies there. And one of them's come up to me and says, "Man, I saw your fight. That was an awesome fight." Blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, how the hell did this guy get here at the same time as me? You know? And I've gone, "Oh, thanks. And what are you doing here?" He goes, "Well, when you won, my girlfriend got that excited. She started jumping up and down in the seating. She fell down she fell down the scaffolding." So his missus is in the hospital as a result of cheering for me, which I really appreciated. But so she's fallen down, and it was a bit funny until they told me, your arm's broken and you need an operation. And I was like, man.
Shit.
So I'm in my tie shorts with a t-shirt or singlet on. No money, no ID, no nothing, and they stuck me in another van and took me to a public hospital, one of the Samui public hospitals, which is something that I've never experienced in my life before. And no one could speak English. The only word they could say to me is look at my arm and say operation. And I'm like, there is no fucking way anyone's going to operate on me here. And this was, as I said, 20 odd years ago when, you're leaving to go to Thailand and they're like, "Oh, you're going to end up in an ice bath with one kidney missing." And I'm like, "Fuck." So it was an interesting time. Anyway, so that, got through it. The boys the next morning found me in the public hospital because everyone kicked on after the show and went celebrating, except for me. So, the next morning they're thinking, "Someone missing." So they jumped on the scooters and proceeded to start looking for me. So it was an experience. I've never been as happy to see one of my fighters as when I'm sitting in this hospital. No phone, no money, no nothing, and the Thais, no one could speak English. They were just pointing at me, saying "Farang" a lot and laughing, and my nose was busted from getting elbowed in the head. My arm was broke. I'm sitting there thinking, man, I don't know. I'm questioning my whole decision-making process with getting here. And then, Brad, one of my guys, turned up and he's like, I'm like, "Get me the hell out of here." So we just, jumped on the scooter, went back to the camp. The next day went to Bangkok, plastered my arm up, and just got on a plane back home sort of a day or two later. And I never had it operated on, and the bone sort of set as it was, and the rest is history. I still got the X-rays to prove it. So,
holy shit!
So that was my little foray from starting in Kyokushin through to my fights. I fought went over with Johnny. My last fight, I think, was in Pattaya, and I had in my corner Johnny Shida, Nick Cara, Daniel Dawson.
That's a pretty decent corner.
And Joe Demicoli was there too, and these are guys that were mates, but we were just hanging out. And I remember we were out the back warming up, and they were obviously betting on the fights. And I specifically said no one bet on the fight because the guy I was fighting was related to the bookie. So I'm like, he's going to try and kill me if these guys put a lot of money on me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, don't bet on the fights. No worries. And I was, the Thais are all cut. They actually come out the back to watch me warm up. And as I'm warming up, I'm doing my best sort of Muppet impersonation. So I'm not trying to look anything special because I'm like, the more bravado you show, the more they're going to come out hard.
Yeah.
So I did the worst shadow sparring of my life. So, and we were sort of making light of it. Got in. I think I KO'd him in the first round. Johnny's like, "Man, don't try and grapple him. Don't try and stand there. Don't start slow. Just run across the ring, punch him in the head as hard and as fast as you can." So I did and stopped him. So that was good. And then went back and then lo and behold, everyone bet on me. So they're like, "Yeah, we all bet on you." Yeah. And I'm like, "Great, I'm glad that we sort of got that done real quick." That's one of the great memories of fighting, having Nick Cara there and going out partying with Nick Cara after was quite an experience as well in Pattaya. So we've had a lot of experiences, and I look back, just talking about it now, sort of, I think, man, that's it seems like a lifetime ago.
Away, yeah. So you said when you went to the Dave Hedgehog seminar, and it's all saying go downstairs and fight. Yeah. Obviously, being promoters now, we know so much has changed with that.
That's
the procedures and stuff When did you start seeing that transition, and like, how's it been being part of that from go down and fight, and now submit your fight card 2 weeks ago with the history of the fight story? It's like,
you know what? That's a great point you raise as well. It was just, as a fighter, it was like we just fought, and I didn't care. I just wanted to fight. Yeah, I suppose going back to stuff, personal stuff. As a kid, I was a real loner, especially in my later teens. I suffered from depression, and I had a lot of negative thoughts. Back then, and there was not a lot of support. I just got through it my own way. But people that cut themselves and stuff like that. I've sort of, since growing up, I've analysed that I didn't do any of that. But when I was training in Kyokushin, I was such a numb shell of a human being. Going to training, pretty much getting punched up, made me feel something. I was emotionless, and I had no feeling, and I was, as I said, I was a real loner. People talk about bullying, this, that, and I get it, but it's like just harden the fuck up for me. So I'd just go to training, and I didn't want to do katas, and I didn't want to do any of that. So just fighting and getting the bruises and feeling that exhilaration of the euphoria from the endorphins are being released when you train hard, but then also going, man, I'm getting punched up all the time, but no one's going to stop me. I've had a hard life, and I had a lot of sort of stuff happen to me when I was young, abusive stuff, not physically, but more mental stuff that was pretty tough on me. And just feeling something through the training made me feel like proud of myself, even though maybe I wasn't a great fighter. I know I was technically very bad. And I won a lot of fights just because people got tired of hitting me, not because I was exceptionally good. But if you have two fighters that are equally as fit, equally as skilled, who's going to win that fight? It's going to be the one with the toughest mental resolve. And for me, it was like no one's stopping me. It's a cliche thing, but I didn't care.
That's why I think Kyokushin, for whatever strategy and sort of thing-wise you can criticize of it, it is the one thing that really does the training alone. Like, people, I think the two hardest sports I've ever trained in have been wrestling and Kyokushin. And Kyokushin is just, they just try to break you emotionally, physically, emotionally down.
And there was no forgiving. Shion Eddie put me to sparring a black belt. And I was training with Judd Reed back then. And Judd's an absolute legend. He was a gun as a kid. Like, I was already, driving, and, I was in, as I said, my early 20s probably then, and he was like 16, and he was punching up adults. We'd go to the tournaments, and we'd watch Judd, and we'd watch Sam Greco. Sam Greco, we used to call him the animal, because he's just a beast, everyone. And Judd just had finesse and skill like no one had ever seen. The Japanese, Wada Sensei, and a lot of these guys would come to Australia, and you'd be in awe of their skills. And Judd was sort of that ilk. So, I was surrounded by these guys, and just struggling to survive, because I wasn't that skillful. But mentally, it's like put me there, and I would have a crack. And there was no weight divisions as well. So we go back to your question about the board and this. And it was like open weight divisions, crazy stuff. Tournament open weight division, still going, to some extent going. You used to have to do breaking at the start of the tournaments to see if there's a draw, how they decide the winner. So whoever breaks more then wins the fight. So, there's all this stuff back then that was just hectic. But I look back now with such fond memories, and I think, going back to your question about the regulations, yes, we have a lot of regulations, but I respect the fact that the Martial Arts Board and the medicos and everyone's trying to do the right thing by the fighters, because you and I have both dealt with people that will put fighters in, and it's the trainers will go, I'll put him in, no problem. And it's like, hang on, it's all right for the trainer, and this is how I'm a bit picky about what I do with my fighters. And as a promoter, I know we both have integrity. We're trying to match people because you have a duty of care. And some trainers, and I'll put this message out there to any fighters or potential fighters, be very careful where you go to and who you go to, because there's not a lot these days, but there used to be a lot of trainers that would just want to stand in the corner for the hell of it, because they're in front of a crowd of people and they never had any attention in their life. So standing in the corner, tipping water over a fighter while people are cheering, it's a euphoric feeling if you've never had it. So they'll do that. They'll get addicted to the rush.
And it's the identity, their identity. They're almost
That's
like
right.
my gym's this, and we do
yeah,
this. It's
and
like,
we're fighters, and
yeah.
it's like, yeah, but your kid's getting killed, dude.
Yeah.
It's like we have a duty of care, and two fighters that are equally equipped to fight is great. But when you have a fighter that's being put in underdone, that's the travesty of justice. You know, you can't do that to people, because we all, you know, my parents have gotten older now, and I've, you know, gone through stuff with dementia and looked at a lot, you know, done the brain study for fighters and all of that with the Brain Institute here in Melbourne. So I'm quite aware of, you know, we're in a physical sport, as is AFL, as is rugby league. You know, there's a lot of sports that are quite physical. So you have, you know, once our sporting days are done, you still want to be able to hold a conversation. You don't want to be subject, because part of brain trauma can be depression later in life.
Yeah.
There's a whole heap of stuff
Yep.
that flows on from it. So we have to have a duty of care to our fighters on our shows, to our fighters in our gyms, and to our students in our gyms. I've got hundreds of students, but I've only got a limited number of fighters. But I still, even in sparring, are very mindful of the control, who's matched with who partners with who. You know, it's not just you have to separate your responsibility to people with your ego, and some people blur that line.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, fuck it, they're fighters, they just got to fight. Well, that's all right, but you get in the ring, get punched up by someone who's 10 kilos or, you know, who's so much more skillful.
Well, the sports, I mean, it's like the actual reality of the sport is that the sport is hard enough as it is.
Correct, yeah.
And it doesn't need that extra tier of bravado. It's
Yep.
like if you put two good guys that are evenly matched, 1 fight each, 2 fights each, 10 fights each, in with each other, it's a hard enough thing.
Yep.
You don't need to add this thing about it of we'll go up in this much weight and we'll do this and we'll do that. We get it. We both get it with
Yeah.
promoters and with trainers, and it's like, it's not you getting punched in the head. It's not you fighting 6 kilos up in weight. It's just, and the lifespan of a fighter, it's like what they talk about NFL players. I think the average career is like 1.5 years or
Yeah.
something. Most of the fighters we deal with, I'd say 90% of them have less than 10 fights.
Yeah.
So why give them this experience that could be lifetime damaging?
And it's, you know, it was when I took River and Chris Butcher over to Lion Fight, we self-funded that.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, you're fighting in Vegas, you're going to earn a heap. No. We went to Lion Fight because I wanted the boys to, I knew from the start, let me just change this tack for a minute. From the start, I was always told, you can't teach Muay Thai doing what you do, Hammer. It's fucking that martial art bullshit. It's not more, this is Muay Thai. You got to do this and you got to do that. And I'm like, really? I'm not going to be that arrogant to think that there's all these martial arts that have been training a certain way for hundreds of years, but Muay Thai doesn't have to do that. So I've always had structure and a certain way of teaching, line work basics, you know, a slow, gradual skill transitional process. So for my first fighters that didn't fight in Melbourne, I've taught them to the best of my ability. Am I going to test them somewhere in a pub here in Melbourne? No. I'm going to take them to Thailand and we're going to fight in Thailand. And I took both those boys to Thailand. They never fought in Melbourne. They went to Thailand, they both won. And I come back and it's like, oh, you just got lucky. You know, the Thais are taxi drivers. And they weren't. There was a fair matched fight against 2 fair matched Aussie kids.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I was very proud of that achievement. So I come back and I'm like, well, that's one for the doubters, saying that I don't know how to teach Muay Thai. And, you know, because I come from a martial art background and I've got a certain way of teaching, people are telling me I don't fucking know how to teach. I'm like, really? Come and stand in my shoes, look at my life, and then tell me what I know and what I don't know. A lot of people judge me. They see me driving a nice car, they see me with a big gym and this and that, and they go, that guy. Well, I come from fucking nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I left school year 10 because my stepfather said, I went home one night and he's like, how old are you? I'm like, 15. How old do you have to be to leave school? 16. Close enough. You start working tomorrow. That was my life.
Yeah.
So don't judge me unless you know me.
Yeah.
And you've lived in my, lived my life and walked in my shoes. So to tell me I don't know what I'm teaching or what I'm doing and judge me from the outside, come to my gym and try and do one of my test gradings. I challenge any fighter to come to my gym and do my black level grading and tell me it's easy.
Yeah.
I'll give you $5,000. if you can do it.
Tom, what are you doing this afternoon?
$5,000. The grading goes for 5 hours. It's $1,000 an hour if you reckon you can do it.
It goes for 5 hours.
5 hours.
That's old school.
So to tell me I don't know what I'm doing and you can't do this and you can't do that, who says what you can and can't do in this world? I'm just trying to do the best I can with the integrity that I want to deliver.
Yeah.
So, going back to that, what we were talking about, I've always had a high regard of caring for my fighters. They're like my brothers. And I say, brother, it's like I believe that. It's like I'm an only child. So these people are like family to me.
Yeah.
So would you put your child or your brother into a fight where you know they're going to get hurt? Unless you have no conscience. That's how I look at my people. They're like my closest things.
Yeah.
So when we go to fighting, it's like, I don't want to stand in the corner. I don't need to stand. This is the difference. I've been on TV, I've done radio, I've done all the media stuff, I've been in magazines. For me to go to a show, stand in the corner, travel, it's an inconvenience. It's not something I want to do. I do it because I have to, not because I want to, for the people now to help them achieve their goals, which is why we went to Lion Fight. So what I said to the boys is we'll prepare for this. We pay our own way. Thank you to all the sponsors that helped us get there. We self-funded that trip. We went over and I'm like, let's see where Aussies sit on this world level. Well, River won. Butcher lost, but he fought Anthony Njokwani, who's now on one series.
Yeah,
he was an ex-UFC fighter. And I'll tell you, Butcher was winning that fight. He made a mistake and he got caught.
Yeah.
So, and everyone that watched it was like, man, that was unlucky. So, and at that time, the guys are getting, 20 fights, 20 wins. And while I'm careful who we fight, we still have challenges, but they're stepped challenges. It's not like overmatching and like, you'll lose, but you win. It's like you have to have a fight that's fair, and then you have to have a fight that's a challenge for you.
Yeah.
So it's just slow progression. And I know that you do that in your matchmaking as I do. And that's, I think, where the integrity comes in the sport and why the events are popular. So when you have a true caring for people and you do your best, I think people see that and they respect that and they gravitate to that. And I think, that's the thing. So as I said to the aspiring fighters, you have to listen to your trainer, and sometimes you'll get people that underestimate their own ability. And I test that in the gradings because I'm like, you're going to grade. And people say no. I'm like, why? I'm not ready. I'm telling you are ready.
Yeah.
And they have they doubt themselves too much. So sometimes you need a bit of a push. And then you've got people that are like, I'll do this, I want to fight, I want to do that. I'm like, just relax. You're not ready yet. So you've got people that are really good that underestimate themselves, and then you've got people that are a bit average that overestimate their ability. They get their ambition confused with their ability, and that's when things get dangerous. So, we're here for the long haul. I've thought about, and we've had this conversation, so I'm not lying. I've thought about stopping promoting because I don't know if I want to be responsible for people getting hurt. It's a bit of a,
No, you're the only other person I've seen, they always say to me, they go, someone gets knocked out, you look really sad, for a show, it's good. Yeah. And I've seen guys get knocked out on your show, and I've seen the look in your face. So it's not like, it's not something we just say. There's a reality to it. We've never thrown someone in knowing they're going to get hurt. I mean...
And that's a conversation we had, and I was like, man, I don't know if I want to keep doing it because I don't know if I don't want anyone to get hurt. And it was the board actually said to me, they go, you know what, if you don't do it, someone else will do it, and maybe they're not going to look after the fighters as well as what guys like yourself and Si do. So that sort of motivated me to keep going, but I'll only do it as long as people want me to do it. The business, the business is appreciated, or the Warriors Way is appreciated by the crowd and the people turn up to support it. And I feel that the fighters and the trainers understand my ethos in what I'm doing, because if they start to doubt me or they start to think they can take advantage of me, then I'm just going to go, you know what, good luck to you. And that's a pity, because a lot of good intentioned people have come into kickboxing back in the day, been totally burned and disappeared from the scene, And you talk about the days of Christopher Cronus promoting, and how many was at that event where Alexio and Stan
7,500, 8,000 people.
It was sold out. They filled the Metro nightclub overflow. It was like on the news,
That's I think people come to our shows and they're like, oh, the crowd's huge.
Yeah.
It's like, no. The glass house, the seats were full, the ring was there.
Yeah.
There was floor sitting all around the ring.
Yeah.
And I mean, when Stan fought Misaki Satake, I remember that crowd was 12 rounds of kickboxing. It was crazy in there. Yeah. We're so far off anything that size. And got a guy like Christopher Cronus that did those shows. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. The sport had, I think, it had a bit of integrity back then, even though it was misunderstood. And I've going back to my days in the media and even, trying to get publicity, and, when I was, working with Wayne Parr and helping to get him fights down here and stuff like that. And, everyone from Stan, Sam Greco, Tosca Petridis, these guys, Tosca, in my mind, was probably one of the best fighters this country ever had. Fought Jean-Yves Theriault, but Jean-Yves Theriault was a god in kickboxing in Canada. And Tosca went over there, he fought in K1, he fought everybody. No one knows it. Like, just look him up. If you've never heard of the guy, Tosca Petridis, look him up.
He knocked out Iron Barkley. He was the fight.
He is a warrior. And I've said this, in a couple of other things, other things that I've done where people have asked me about fighters, and he's the most understated fighter without a doubt in this country. Then there was guys like Ian Jacobs, and there was some real good poster boys back then, and the magazine International Kickboxer that I was running and helped found, we give everyone I suppose a showcase, somewhere to showcase them. We put them on the covers, we made them rock stars. Gurkhan Ozcan, when Tarek Solak was doing the big shows. The magazine was driving, was at the time the Bible for the industry. So, there was some credibility now. I think social media has diluted everything down to a point where 100%. Someone will kick a pad for 10 seconds and go nuts on a bag and get all, everyone going, oh, that was sick, bro. It's like, did you do 10 rounds or did you do 10 seconds?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of falsity around things in the world today, from how people look on social media to what our kids have to aspire to be like, to the fight game, where these people will have, put up a clip, kick in a bag, they can do one thing and everyone thinks they're the next big thing. So there's the real legitimate, stars of the sport are somewhat lost in the pack now, whereas back then there was a spotlight on people that did well. It was, was getting on TV, and, there wasn't 50 different titles, and, that was one thing where I remember ringing the Herald Sun. And I said, this guy's just won a world title, blah, blah, blah. And they go, yeah, mate, we've heard all this before. He goes, the one reason, and I said, why can't we get something in the paper? Because I was working in media, I knew the speak, talking to guys like Ron Reed at the Herald Sun and so forth. I said, why can't these guys get in the paper? And he goes, mate, kickboxing, everyone's got a title. Yeah, we'll get 10 heavyweight champions ringing us. So they just got confused.
It's 100% true. I said that to John McCollum. Like, if you say you're the world #1 tennis player, you actually are the world number. But I reckon Australia probably has produced more kickboxing world champions than any other sport, right?
Correct.
And they're not world champions, most of them. They've won it. They've got less than 10 fights.
And now, now we've got amateurs running around with title belts. It's like, it does discredit our sport. And it's all great, I won the WKA Australian title, and back then it was huge because it was WKA was like the sanctioning body, and to have that belt, like, bury me with that thing, I'm telling you. But now it's like, the I suppose number one, an Australian title is like, okay, but you're not a world champion, So the state, national, Commonwealth, world or intercontinental, then world, or whatever it might be, none of that is sort of adhered to, which makes it somewhat confusing. And boxing suffers from the same dilemma because WBC, WBO, ABC, this, that. So in the quest to run the business And in the quest for a fighter wanting the holy grail of a title, things can become diluted. So fans have to appreciate that it's not always about, you've got to go to the fights irrespective of if there's titles on offer or not. And Bob Jones said this to me years ago, and Bob was, somewhat of a father figure to me. Dave Hedgecock, these guys, they were really my mentors back in the day. They were real hard men, and they tell you how it is. And I remember talking to Bob, and he was like, one of the fighters went overseas, maybe it was Tosca or someone, and they lost. And I'm like, oh man, he lost. And Bob's like, you know what? Australians just need to get over it.
Yeah.
Because not every tennis player goes into Wimbledon and wins Wimbledon or wins the Australian Open. They lose, but no one stops following them or stops admiring the athletes that they are.
Yeah.
They can just miss out on the Grand Slam, or they can be top 10 seeded placed. Like that's, follow the fighters, because win or lose, number one, they're getting in there, and that's so hard to do. Number two, there can only be one winner, and sometimes there's nothing in it. Number three is, if we love the sport, you got to love everyone that is getting in, and it's sitting there, they're entertaining you. So they're putting their body on the line, they're putting their brain on the line, their life on the line, essentially not being melodramatic. For what? For your $50 is worth that, is it? Or your $70?
Yeah.
So you want to see someone get killed for $70? Come on.
And the name calling and stuff from fans, like I don't think we get a lot of it. I think we've both had a couple of times where we've had booing and stuff at the show before the fight. And, I remember on one of your shows, there was a knockout and some of the stuff that happened, and I remember you addressed the crowd, and I had a similar one with the guy got booed, and they had his opponent had the biggest opponent. I went out and said, if you don't bring your mates in again, I know it was like 80 of you, but don't bring them.
Yeah. I've had fighters in the ring, and we've won, and people have thrown stuff in the ring, and I will, if I found out who threw that, I will jump the rope and drag that person in the ring and put on an additional fight for the promoter for free. That's so disrespectful. So it's just about having that appreciation and respect for each and every fighter, appreciating the trainers that really do give up their personal time, their family life. I missed a lot of my daughter's childhood because of the sport, and I regret that now, because people that I've put a lot into have moved on, and so that's life. But my daughter only had one life, and there was things and family weekends that I didn't partake of because I was either travelling for the sport, or I was travelling with a fighter, or I was busy working on things for other people, and as a result, I've missed out on certain things. I'd probably do it all again, truth be told, because it's got me where I am. But everyone goes into the sport with a genuine caring to give their best.
Yeah.
Keep real with what you're doing, and for the fans, appreciate who's there. We were talking to Jimmy Crute earlier this week, talking about maybe a UFC fight in Brazil, and he's thinking they're taking into account obviously the location. If they go to Brazil and fight a Brazilian, he said to me, man, you go to Brazil and fight, when you're walking out, people spit on you and stuff like that. It's like, what is that about? These people mental, It's like respect for all round.
And they chant, "You're gonna die." In Brazilian, they chant, "You're gonna die. You're gonna die."
And I think, the UFC's got a bit to answer for that, because they promote that wrestling theatre that is garbage in the martial arts. I get it; it builds the hype, but at the same time, it loses us a bit of respect, because people just think we're thugs. So for us, it's like, oh, did you hear Conor McGregor said this and that? Oh, how funny was that? But for the parent that has their 5-year-old at home thinking, do I take him to footy and do Auskick or rugby or tennis or swimming, or do I take him to a martial art gym? They see someone acting like that calls themselves a martial artist, and they're like, I don't know a lot about this stuff, but I don't really want my kid being around that. So it's got to be a level of respect across the board, and as fans we need to appreciate the athletes and everyone involved, because as I said, they're putting their asses on the line for your $50 to $70.
I mean, that's like, I guess with martial arts especially, it's one of the ways we sell it to kids about discipline and respect, and then at the highest level it's getting displayed as they've got a trash talk, they've got to throw dollies through the bus window. That makes it up. With the titles and stuff, Hammer, I mean, I think it's one of those things everyone's got to say it. People, fighters say it, trainers say it, fans say, oh, there's too many belts, this and that.
Yep.
We all know this.
Yep.
End of the day, we've both had it where trainers only want their fighters on for a belt, which as soon as they say that, they've pretty much guaranteed it. What do you think is the solution? I mean, unless the fighters stop asking for it, I mean, it's a supply and demand thing.
And you know what? And we know, we know that when you put a title on, you know that fighter that will sell you 5 tickets will all of a sudden sell you 50.
Yeah.
So it really is, you've got to be ballsy to say no to that.
Yeah.
Because it does it financially. You just make more money out of it as a promoter, and the fighter wants it. They think they deserve it. So the answer is that's the eternal question, isn't it? The answer is, I think, just making it more about the fights and less about the titles. I think setting up credible ranking systems, and again, something that we've spoken about, where you're like, when there's a ranking system and there's a clear pathway, and you can't fight for an Australian title till you win a state title, and then the state title holders have to fight off against each other. I mean, I know, and there's a couple of sanctioning bodies where there's multiple title holders in the same division. Yeah. It's like, come on, what's that about? There's 2 or 3 middleweight Australian champions of that same organisation, and people get quite defensive, and they're like, oh, bull. So I call it as I see it.
No one's saying you're not a good fighter. We're just saying you're not the best fighter in the world.
Like I'm dealing with, River Daz is on Glory now. And we had this. River was getting to be at the top of the tree here.
Yeah.
We got the contract for Glory, and that was we got also offered one to fight on one championship.
Yeah.
And then I remember speaking to Michael Chavello saying, "Well, who are we going to fight?" And he goes, "Whoever they say." And I'm like, "But River at the time had 20 fights," and he goes, "Yeah, you might have to fight a tie with 200." And one was like, "Man, look at it now. It's probably the biggest martial art." Promotion in the world.
Yeah.
And I turned it down because there's nothing for me to gain by taking River to bloody Singapore, putting him against the Thai, Petch or whoever it might be, and the kid's getting smashed, and then I'm going, well, he had a crack. Well, sure, but to what results? So why I thought Glory was good, number one, it wasn't our first choice because it's not Muay Thai, it was kickboxing. Yeah. So then we were like, we're doing all this Muay Thai. He's got Australian Muay Thai title, WMC. Now we've got to take a step back, take that out, go and start doing K1 or kickboxing. But what appealed to me is their ranking system.
Yeah.
So where you just got to work your way up from the bottom up. And I'll give you this scenario. We tried to get River a visa to go and fight in Miami on Glory. And even the US immigration are like, where's the ranking? Who's he fought? Why should he be able to come to America and fight on the undercard when we can just get an American to do that? Even the immigration department of the United States now has tightened up their immigration laws. Are like, unless his kid's ranked and unless he can show why he deserves to come to America and fight on a show here, never mind for a title, just to get in the country.
Yeah.
So it comes back to that government organisation saying you need to be credible to fight in our country because you're taking the job of an American because you're just fighting on the undercard. A little bit crazy because it's still an international fight.
Yeah.
But that comes back to Glory's got their ranking system. He's starting from the bottom. We want to claw our way up, and then we'll get a crack at the title, and then the money will come, and then everything will come with it. So I think that's, if that sort of makes some sense.
There has to be a road. There has to be a rise, and I've always thought that, and it's what we're trying to do is go. There has to be something that fighters aim for, and something they work towards. And not everyone's going to get there, but there has to be that thing. You fight in your amateurs, then you get on the bottom end of our cards. You work your way up. 100%. You get to the top. You get the titles in steps. You don't, and it's not a popularity contest per se. I mean, you need that for promotions.
Yes.
But there has to be that, and if you're a fighter or you're a fan or you're a trainer out there, and you actually think there's a problem with the way the industry is. You're the ones that spend the money. You're the ones that fight.
Yeah.
Don't ask for the titles. If you're not the best guy in Victoria, don't put up photos of yourself with 4 Australian title belts up when you know there's 3 guys that beat you here.
Exactly. And I think it's if we dumb it right down, it's almost like saying, I got this kid, he's special, I want him to be main event on your show.
Yeah.
How many fights has he had? Oh, none. But he's really good, so let's get him as main event. No one would accept that because it makes sense. And if we apply that same logic to titles, hopefully we can get an answer. But it's the as I said, I've been doing this for over 25 years, going on the 30 years. So I can it's the age-old question going back to when Bob said people should just respect the fighters and appreciate the fight without it having to be a title fight. Yeah. So that's my say.
Awesome. Well, Hammer, thank you so much for coming down today. I know it's a busy time. I know you're running out to the AFL Grand Final parade in the city, as am I. I don't even know who's playing.
What's AFL?
Yeah, I know AFL.
Does anyone care?
Yeah, they hand out titles. Jokes. Thank you so much, Hammer. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you for having me.
For everyone listening, next Saturday, 5th of October, Warriors Way 24, headlined by Alexei the Great Petroulius and Sam Hill, Baby Nansen and Jacinda Pascalides, Jen Hontonglex fighting Joey Babylon, and you've got Callan Leg also, who's going to have his first fight in Australia.
Callan Leg's filling in, and he's stepping up and fighting Nikora Likingi. So, I really appreciate Callan Leg stepping up and filling in there and taking the place of Quan, who pulled out of the fight. So, that's awesome. So, and if anyone wants to see any more information, we're releasing more stuff out on the Instagram, my Instagram, Mark Hammer Castagnini, or Warriors Way, and the social media stuff.
And also, guys, the two fights on the poster, Isaac Tomlinson and Blair Gilbertson, that's going to be hell of a fight. If you've seen Isaac fight, he just won the WBC title on my show. He's fighting with the WMC show. Blade's been doing really great things with Pickles coming through. I'm really looking forward to that one. And Anthony Pappas and Dominic Reed. It's going to be a big night, guys. If you want Muay Thai to do well, get down to the shows. This is why you want to keep people like Hammer and I in the show. And if you're in the area and you need a good gym, Hammer's Gym in Nunawading, the biggest, baddest gym in the world. It's growing every day.
Thanks, Si. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you've stuck it out to the bitter end with us. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Hammer. Thank you, mate.